Hello from the motley crew of Little Bird. We've been continuing our journey up the Caribbean after delivering our balanced 526 Catamaran from South Africa to Grenada late last year. Last episode, we enjoyed the beautiful island of Antigua and its surprisingly quiet anchorages. We continued our journey to learn to wingfoil, hit Jolly Harbor, and learn that Tif is considering taking dance lessons.
It's April 2022 and we decide to make our way from Jumbie Bay, Long Island on Antigua to Coco Point in Barbuda. It was another beautiful sail with an average wind at 19 knots right on the beam. We were flying along with a single reef main and code 0, seeing that Little Bird hits 12 knots easy. After about 3 hours, we could see Barbuda on the horizon, but the island was so flat. In fact, the highest point, it turns out, is only about 125 feet. So it wasn't until we were fairly close that we could see it. Very different scenery from the other islands we had visited so far. We knew there would be shallow areas and coral heads to watch out for, so I was really glad we arrived to a beautiful sunny day with great visibility and absolutely stunning aqua blue water. Easy conditionings for anchoring, thank goodness. Frank was at the helm and I made sure we got a nice sandy spot. There were about a dozen or so other boats there, so there was plenty of room for everyone. After checking to make sure the anchor was dug in good, we headed to shore.
Barbuda is incredible and easily our favorite place so far in the Caribbean. The water is beautiful, the beaches go on forever, and the people are awesome. It's about half the size of Antigua, but only 1,600 inhabitants. That makes for something very special. As a matter of fact, other than a couple small resorts that were destroyed in Hurricane Irma, until recently there hasn't been any major development here, something you don't see in places like this anywhere in the world. That's why it was a bummer to see the change coming. There's construction everywhere right now. Dust was blowing all over the place, helicopters flying prospective homebuyers in, and the universal symbol of pending change, the elevated, "What will my kitchen window view look like?" platform. In my experience, wherever these show up, things change drastically. There were also signs all over the beach that the land beyond the high tide was private, and although the staff at the facilities were nice, they almost seemed ashamed that they weren't allowed to help us or barely talk with us at all. I'm not anti-development, but I do wonder how Barbuda made it this far without development, while the other islands that make up the country of Antigua and Barbuda seem to be in development overdrive. It seems to have to do with how land was owned after the end of slavery in the mid-1800s. Individuals owned land collectively, so to oversimplify it, nobody could sell their individual land to developers. There were only 2 small resorts in Barbuda before the hurricane, and one of them was apparently Princess Diana's favorite holiday spot. But there aren't any major large resorts or giant mansions. This land ownership was codified in the 2007 Barbuda Land Act, and it said that citizens owned the Barbudan land collectively and must provide consent before any major development projects. As you'd expect, developers have been after the land for years. It turns out Robert De Niro and James Packer love the place and have been trying to develop here since the early 2000s. Plus, another set of investors led by the guy behind Paul Mitchell have come after the other side of the island with a $2 billion project with the suspicious name of Peace, Love, and Happiness. That can't be good. This is where the story gets dark. After almost the entire island was destroyed during Hurricane Irma in 2017, 95% of the homes and infrastructure were gone. All of the island's inhabitants had to be evacuated to Antigua, and most didn't return for 2 years. Apparently something happened while everyone was gone, and what was supposed to be reconstruction started to become development of the 2 large resort projects. There are obviously a lot of perspectives here, and I don't know the full story. We're also a couple sailing around the world on an expensive boat, so some may consider us more part of the problem than the solution. I do understand that there's a court case that's supposed to be decided this month that will provide some clarification about the development in the country's high court. I hope whatever happens, though, the people of Barbuda make out in some way and the money isn't just moved off island. Either way, I would say this: if you want to visit Barbuda and see one of the most beautiful places in the Caribbean and maybe the world, do it quickly. It's changing that fast.
Even with all the changes, Barbuda is such an amazing place. After spending the whole day enjoying the water, we picked up some barbecued lobster from Shakakai, a local spot on Princess Diana Beach. The next morning, we headed on a short hop to 11 Mile Beach on the east side of the island. We landed and anchored, and as soon as I could, I jumped in the water for a nice long swim. And I just kept swimming. I couldn't get over how beautiful and calm the water was. And the beach, well, it was another stunner too.
Barbuda was perfect for getting back on the Wingfoil. All 3 of us had been trying to learn over the last couple weeks, and this would be our 3rd go out. We all had towed a bit behind the dinghy back in Grenada, but now we're focusing on putting it all together: the board, the wing, the foil. Task 1 was staying upwind, so you didn't need to paddle back or have someone rescue you in the dinghy. It's crazy how quickly you drift downwind on these things. To speed the learning process, Sailing Cessa let us borrow their board, so now we had 2 to go out on. That helped a ton. As we started to get more comfortable with the wing and staying upwind, we could start to focus on jibing back and forth. To do it correctly, you really need to switch foot on each jibe or go from regular foot to goofy foot. I grew up skateboarding, surfing, and snowboarding all religiously regular foot, so the curse of the goofy was not coming easy. Keith had a little easier time of it. Tif hadn't done much board sports, but was really getting the hand of jibing and staying upwind as well. Slowly but surely, it started to come together. We didn't get a ton of video, but we finally started getting up on the foil. Keith won the prize for sure with the longer rides and the beautiful dismount.
After all the fun, we were invited to the beach for a barbecue with the crews from Urge Explorer and Sailing Cessa. As any sailor will tell you, it's the people you meet out here that make it that much more fun. And the Norwegians were a blast. We all gathered wood and set up in time for another great sunset. But then it was time to toast, Norwegian style. Skål, as they say, to celebrate all the new achievements that day, big or small. It was a late night, so the next morning everyone took their time. Actually, most of us didn't get going till the wind did. The conditions were finally ideal for kiting, so by the afternoon it was time to get out there. And it was quite a show. Kites zooming by or flying over Little Bird for about 2 hours. This is definitely a sport I will have to try. sadly, it was time to move on. We all got up at dark 30, I think it was about 3:45 a.m., to start the 65-mile passage from Barbuda to St. Bart's. It was another downwinder with 16 to 22 knots of wind. I was hoping to fly the spinnaker, but it was a bit too gusty, so we enjoyed just the Code Zero again. But more about that passage next time.